Many otherwise extremely competent and confident presenters dread the question and answer session of a presentation. However, questions form an important part of the presentation for the whole audience as they allow for clarification and consolidation of learning. The presenter can enhance the usefulness of the question and answer session by treating it as a formal part of the presentation that requires as much careful planning and control as the delivery of the core material. Hello everyone. In this video we will look at how to handle questions during a presentation. First of all, let us look at the fears presenters have. Fear of the unknown. Virtually any question might be asked and we will be on the spot in a high-pressure situation. Lack of preparation. Most people don't actually prepare, or know how to prepare effectively for questions. No real confidence in our positions, our answers or our ability to respond. Over-imagining the difficulty of questions and assuming our questioners will be antagonistic. Fear of failure. What if I can't answer the question? Will I be embarrassed, ridiculed, rejected, fired? Now, we need to take 3 essential steps to deal with questions successfully. Step 1 is preparing for questions. Step 2 is setting out some ground rules. And third step is using the framework while responding to questions. Let us look at step 1. Preparing for questions. Understand what type of audience you'll be faced with. Define a focus for your presentation and explore it thoroughly in your research and planning. Define topics for discussion and decide the areas you're willing to field questions in. Identify, list and practice answering all possible questions. Especially prepare yourself for the worst questions. Prepare prompts for questions that are open and straightforward. Step 2 is setting out some ground rules. Before starting the presentation, it is important to set some ground rules. Ask people to stand up when they ask a question. This does 2 things. 1, it shows you more readily who is asking the question, and 2, it make it easier for the audience to also hear the question. At the start of your presentation, make it clear whether and when you would prefer to deal with questions, as you go along or at the end of the presentation. If you like to deal with questions as they arise, but you are concerned about the pitfalls, there is an easy way to handle this. In your introduction, explain that there are 3 types of questions. First type is questions that seek clarification of something that has just been said which you will answer immediately. Second is questions that ask a related question about something that you plan to cover later which you will answer later in the presentation. And third is questions best dealt with offline because most of the audience probably won't be interested, or it's outside the topic of the presentation. If you prefer to deal with questions at the end of the presentation, you should set aside sufficient time for questions but also limit the amount of time available. You should not close the presentation with the question and answer session. When you have finished answering questions, you can thank the audience for their questions and then summarize once again the main points. And last is maintain control. Stay in control of the questioning periods. Formally recognize the questioner before they speak, and limit the number of questions. Allow only one person to speak at a time. Step 3 is framework for responding to questions. Use the following framework to help you respond effectively to your audience. Listen to the whole question. Don't answer immediately. Pause for a few seconds, actively listen to all parts of the question and think about the best way to answer. Understand the context. Ask them to clarify what they mean. Check for confirmation by paraphrasing the question back to the questioner. Involve the whole audience. Make sure the whole audience has heard and understood the question by repeating it or paraphrasing it to the audience. Respond concisely. Try to keep your responses as focused as possible. To avoid going into too much detail, check back with the questioner to see if you have answered their query. Allow follow-up questions via email. You can also encourage your audience to ask questions after the event has finished by providing your email address. Now let us look at the options for answering the question. There are 6 possible choices depending on how well you understand and can answer the question. Answer it. If you have a good answer for the question from the audience, go ahead and answer it in a short and clear message. Reflect it. Give it back to the questioner. A good device for letting an expert show off. Also great for handling cynical questions. Deflect it. Ask the question back to the audience or pass it to another panel member if possible. Defer it. Tell the audience member you will talk to them after the event. Or mention that that point is coming up in a slide. Scope it. Take it offline. Do this for specialist questions, or those that are irrelevant or you don't have time for. And last is ignore it. Avoid answering questions that fall outside of the remit of your talk. There are few things a presenter should avoid. Answering the question you wished you'd been asked. Giving a lengthy response. Passing the blame. Defensive answers. Now let us look at issues presenters have. First is, how do I respond confidently to a question I simply don't know the answer to without losing face? What if I don't understand the question? How do I deal with hostile questions? How do I respond confidently to a question I simply don't know the answer to without losing face? Relax and do not feel as if you have to know everything. If you don't know, it is better to be honest than to try to pretend. You can either ask the audience for help or at least offer a thought or perspective if you have one. What if I don't understand the question? The most important step to understanding a question is listening. Listen to the entire question. Breathe and don't leap straight into a response. And check with the questioner before answering. How do I deal with hostile questions? Remain calm and depersonalize the attack. Do not attack the questioner. Treat them the same as any other member of the audience and answer their question as honestly and as professionally as you can. Don't get defensive. Don't dwell on a negative questioner. Close it. If the questioner is looking for more of an argument rather than an answer, then you should close it down. With this, we have reached to the end of the video. Before ending the video, let us recapitulate the main points covered. We started with fears presenters have. How to prepare for questions. Setting out some ground rules. Framework for responding to questions. Options for answering the question. Things to avoid. And last is issues presenters have. Do not forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon. We hope that you liked the video. Thanks a lot for your time.